Um, Good evening, everyone. Crypto Girls Club, which I affectionately call CGC, is a community of curious learners, developers, and entrepreneurs with the aim to inspire women to get involved in Web3, to learn and evolve to become leaders in blockchain. 95% of the blockchain industry consists of men. We love men, but it's 95%. Which means that those who will be forming the entire industry will most likely be men too. We are here to change that because we want to make Web3 part of the society and a reflection of that society, and that means that women need to be equal and also play a bigger part. In that spirit, today, CGC hosts this panel discussing with 5 formidable women of Web3 building a decentralized world. The world as we know it is changing. The world that we know is changing. A decentralized world is taking its place, a world where individuals are allowed to have more control over their data, property, art, societies, and also be able to take part in more decision-making processes. The concept of a decentralized world where no institution, company, or even government has too much power or control is not new. But this time, the technology and the will to enable the decentralization is ripening. Blockchain, smart contracts, cryptography, cryptocurrencies, you name it, we got it. With me on stage today to discuss building a decentralized world is, in no particular order, Christine Mohan, who is the Vice President of Klich Protocol. Christine has 20 years of experience with blockchain, emerging tech, and media companies, including the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal. Formerly, she was co-founder of Civil Media, a news syndication platform built on Ethereum and funded by Consensus. She also served as CMO for Web3 Foundation and Polkadot before joining Klich Protocol as VIP, business development, leading ecosystem development and enterprise adoption. Klich is a blockchain identity protocol for issuing self-sovereign, anonymous, and verifiable credentials. Klich's mission is to return control over personal data to its owner. Next up, we have Anna Valdez, co-founder, The Standard.io. Anna is an accomplished chief of operations with 6+ years of experience in fintech and blockchain, with a focus on compliance and AML. So we are beyond excited to hear her insights today. The Standard is a stablecoin crypto protocol which enables anyone to send crypto and tokenized gold and silver to a smart contract. Next up, we have Elise Cannon, co-founder of Sadu. Perfect. Elise has built different products over the past decade in Australia, London, and now Berlin. She is co-founder of Sadu, where she gets to flex her tech muscles and data knowledge to contribute to climate-positive solutions. Sadu is a play-to-earn mobile app for natural capital. You make good habits, Sadu makes them count. Use your active lifestyle to reduce eco-anxiety. I'm having some anxiety right here, so this is helpful. And then finally, oh no, not finally, but so we have Dana Hersu. I hope I said that correctly. So Dana is a, pardon?
Close enough.
Close enough, I'm sorry. Dana is an NFT aficionado and has worked bringing crypto products to the masses from Trade Republic, Nuri, and now fronts the product and community teams at Fuel, a no-code NFT platform for creators which enables creators to unlock new revenue streams and build deeper connections with their most loyal fans. Imagine Shopify for NFTs. Creators can launch their own fully customized NFT shop to keep full control over their brand without any tech knowledge, simple and accessible for all. And finally, we have Victoria Klich, the founding partner at W3 Fund, co-founder at W3 Vision. W3 Fund and W3 Vision are a multifaceted ecosystem consisting of a fund, a conference, media offering, and a community. Those are our ladies tonight. Please help me give them a big applause as we start the conversation. Thank you. Building a decentralized world, the decentralized world could be a chance to take control of our digital lives back from the big tech firms, but also establish new ways of doing things, from DeSci to DeFi, to DSOC to art and entertainment. So how does it work, and when will it be here? Our 5 panelists will explore this and other ideas centered, pun intended, around the decentralized world. Let's hop to it, everyone. Down the decentralized rabbit hole we go. I'll be your guide, Shashi. So, ladies, our first question today is, why build a decentralized world? What's the actual value proposition, and why should we care? Should we start on this side? Elise?
Sure. Can you guys hear me? Okay, maybe you want to start then?
Yeah, we can share.
Okay, cool. All right. So decentralized by definition is really, it boils down to control. And I think for too long we have been slave to the data that is collected, either being used for or against us. But decentralization for me really brings about this layer of transparency that we don't already see at the moment. And with that becomes a lot more opportunity for efficiencies, how information flows through a system. So I'm a data nerd, it didn't say it in the intro, but for me it's really about the access to information and what that can mean down the line. So why should we care about it? Because I believe it's going to be part of all of our lives, and it will actually allow us to access and use our information in a way that makes sense for us in the future.
So within our fund, we're actually talking about this topic for a lot of times because we invest in NFTs and we invest in Web3 startups that allow the infrastructure for decentralization. And for me, the most interesting part is digital ownership. We get more digitalized every year, especially through Corona. There's just way more happening in a digital realm. And for me, it just makes sense to own your digital stuff. And this is not by trusting centralized companies such as Meta, who owns our data, basically. So once, for whatever reasons, Meta decides to shut down their servers, everything that you've built up socially, which you identify with, where you have all your friends and followers on, is gone. And putting that on the blockchain, making it more accessible to, first of all, way more people and to truly own your data is for us a really huge step into the future of the internet. And this is why it just makes sense and there's great opportunities to get more decentralized, whereas I think there are a lot of challenges on the way, but I think probably we'll talk about this as well. So, yeah.
Okay, this is good, right? Okay, nice. So thank you so much for having me. It's really a pleasure to be here with everyone. I want to touch maybe on the practical stuff that owning your data and not being dependent on a handful of platforms and all of these things actually mean in the context of art. And it empowers artists a lot. And I'm just going to mention a couple of them, and hopefully further down the line we'll get to touch on them. But the first one would be access to new revenue streams. Now artists all across the board are looking for new ways to distribute their art because we know the traditional systems are quite broken and the amount of effort that you have to put in, if we look at music, into streaming and the rewards that you get from there, and now they're looking for ways to optimize on that. Secondly, you have finding your tribe, as the artists like to refer, which means the community. They get the chance to actually connect with and identify these people that want to be part of their journey and want to see them grow and also, of course, benefit from that growth further down the line. But it's a really great place where you can move away from the idea of an audience that you usually have with all of these traditional platforms. You have all the Spotify listeners that you have no idea who they are. You have your followers on Instagram, TikTok. You have no idea how to engage with them. But now you move from one to many towards few to few. Third, it's empowering creativity and the possibility to create novel art, which is something that is now severely, severely broken. In traditional systems, you have everything is constrained by what sells. You have certain players that kind of dictate, or decide what the market wants or needs, and then your creative process has to fit into that, or you're going to struggle a lot to put your own art out there. So this is a very important thing. Artists are now free to create for themselves, not having to, necessarily do commissions or freelancing or all these other stuff. That is still an option, but I'm going to mention it later. And yeah, just basically empowering novelty. And the last, which I think is the most important, is owning their story and their brand. When in the traditional sense of things, you try to promote yourself, you either let others do it and decide for you how that marketing is going to look like, or you have to abide by certain algorithms that have to be fed the way that they're meant to be fed. But now you can save a lot of money, first of all, in trying to create this kind of marketing, or going for parties that will take a big cut if they do your marketing. And then you can simply create your own story together with all of the community. And it's a really great place where all of these opportunities can come together in a very nice way. Thank you. Should we try this one? Yeah. Wait.
How is this? Oh, okay. So I've been in blockchain 5 years, and so I've seen a nice evolution of efforts around decentralization. I was on a small project, Ethereum. I was on the protocol and foundation side, where our job was to do a lot of education around decentralization and Web3. And now on the project level again, really pushing our active movement towards and now being a fully decentralized protocol. And what I'm happy to see is that instead of being this ephemeral thing, this aspirational, decentralized, free, get your data back that you saw over the first couple of years, I think especially there's even been some articles written that in the December-January timeframe, the searches of Web3 went way up, and there was much more knowledge of it, more curiosity around it, and I really think that was driven by NFTs. For better or for worse, but I think it has brought this concept to a whole new audience, and now it's actually becoming real. And so I'm really interested to talk to the different folks. Everyone has very different roles here about what it means to them, but also how we're seeing it really happen and how it's moving forward all of our projects.
Yeah, I definitely completely agree with what's being said. And obviously we all get into decentralization with the ideology, right? Like they take your data back. I love this quote that we've all seen, which is like there are around 5 billion people in the planet who have access to the internet and only a handful of companies who control all their data. That same thing happens for the sector that I'm in, which is like fintech and financials. Same thing happens with money. Who creates money, who controls money, who has access to it? So definitely the one thing that I would like to point out about decentralization and blockchain and all their advantages is that we are very early, even though we've been on it for a while. But if you remember the early days of the internet as well, people, all they were doing, they were just like barely doing email. So we don't know a lot of the things that are going to come with decentralization yet. We know the advantages ideologically, we know the advantages that we know for the protocols that we have and that we can foresee, and NFTs and artists, but there's a lot more to come too that we haven't even thought of yet. So definitely a lot of possibilities in decentralization.
Perfect. So I'm going to start with Anna now for this one, but each of your companies that you're involved in seeks to solve a particular problem by creating a solution that is primarily centralized. Could you walk us through what you're building and at what stage you're at? Are you fully decentralized, partially decentralized? If not, now when?
All right, so we're the standard.io or the standard protocol, and we are a DeFi protocol that will allow people to mint their own stable coins that are over-collateralized, backed by digital assets or physical assets. The first stable coin is going to be pegged to euro, so it's going to be standard euro, and there are more other currencies that are going to come after that. So what that allows you to do, for example, is something that a lot of wealthy people are currently doing, but not a lot of other people have access to, which is if you need liquidity, you don't need to sell your assets, you can just borrow on them. And in this case, you're not borrowing from anyone, you're generating that. So yeah, we have the experience because we've been running also a centralized exchange from crypto and precious metals for over 6 years, and we definitely see the potential in decentralization. That's what we're doing. So we're not fully decentralized yet, we're still building. So we do have a community of standard token holders who we're very lucky to have, and that's allowed us to hire engineers who are currently working on the project. And we've always thought about it like a DAO. So we're definitely moving towards that, but as a lot of other protocols, we start more centralized and then we start decentralizing. Of course, we do have a system of proposals and a system of voting, so that's where the decentralization comes from. And I think what stage we're at, I'm actually very happy to say that we're tomorrow, 25th of August, we're launching on testnets. So, So the first test, standard euro are going to be minted. So this is going to be a closed beta for the first week, but from the 1st of September, then it will be open to people. So join our Discord to know more about that.
Shall I go then? So Klich is fully decentralized. We launched a year ago, September, as a parachannel Kusama. Kusama is the canary net to Polkadot. And so often folks will launch there, test, iterate, launch some services, and then move. So after 2 months, we were able to fully decentralize, remove the sudo key, and then turn governance over to the community. And it was really interesting to see. We went through the crowd loan process with a lot of other projects in Kusama, and it was interesting to see how some projects kind of made a little mistakes and maybe gave governance over too soon and realized they still had some tech work to do on their chain and had to then ask the community whether it was okay to do these very technical, critical things to move their protocol forward. So it's something that we're all still learning. It's something we're trying to get the community more involved because we have treasury, we've got coins in there that could be used for great projects. And so governance is a constant push. It's hard work. It's you have to also help people understand the process. Unfortunately, the UI on some of the Polkadot assembly and some of the places for governance and discussions is not great. It's a little bit off-putting to people who aren't using it all the time. So again, that's like an ongoing problem with crypto and blockchain, but more and more people are understanding that governance is key to this, obviously key to decentralization and getting it to where it needs to be. So, but it's been, for Klich, it's, we made it a very, very high priority to do it as soon as possible and to involve the community in voting for, even as we went through the process for fundraising, so getting them involved. An engaged community in your protocol is really key for steering it in the right direction and also for anything that you want to do in terms of growth and adoption.
Now I'm just stealing people's mics. Cool. Thank you. So, yeah, you introduced it really well. We are building the Shopify for NFTs. That's in short. In long, we want to provide every artist with the Web3 tools to sell their art on their own terms. What does this mean? Well, imagine you have a business, right? You're a small business owner and you want to sell your stuff and you go to the Amazon marketplace. And what are the chances of actually selling? And if you do, no one really knows that they bought from you. Where is the brand on that? How can you look at your customers, understand who they are, you know, and figure out how can you grow your business? How can you get your customers to be more engaged? Whereas if you are able to build your own store, then you're going to have, and you have all of the tools necessary, then you're able to put your brand on it, you know, you build it the way that you want to, you get the insights because the data is there, and you get all the insights to, easily readable insights to understand about your customers and to figure out, you know, how to engage with them better. And it's a similar thing here. You have OpenSea as the marketplace, not to downgrade in any way its importance and how revolutionary it was to the entire space, but it's still lacking in terms of tooling for artists, in terms of you know, support and ownership and freedom to build these things the way that artists should. And that's where we come in. We are at the very, very beginning, but it's been a great beginning so far. So we are pre-seed, but we already have quite a lot of artists, both independent and both bigger artists, you know, with labels that joined us already. So that's amazing. And we are partially decentralized. Why that is because we want to lower the barriers to entry for both supporters, collectors, fans, and artists alike. And this would come with things, as you can imagine, email authentication, paying with credit card, or all of these other things that we already know kind of pushed them away from crypto in the first place. And all of these aspects come with certain legal things that we need to abide by. And we are working with the best lawyers in Germany to make sure that we are compliant all across Europe. And yeah, it's about making the complex simple, and it's also the thing of thinking about the use case that you want and figuring out the best way to build that. So there's this theoretical trilemma that you cannot have decentralization, scalability, and security all at the same time. And it's good to keep that in mind, you know, when you're trying to build anything, to figure out who you're catering to, you know, who your audience is, your customers are, how do you want to help them, and build the best product based on these things.
I'll just take this one. Okay, so with us, it's a little bit different, because from this group, we're not building, we're investing. So full disclosure, we're not decentralized. We're an investment fund collecting money from traditional investors and giving that into a DAO structure to problems. First of all, a DAO in Germany, very, very difficult. I don't know if you guys tried it before. Very difficult, legal-wise. And also, I think it's we're not in a stage where you can basically just collect money from individual people who do not want to participate in governance and then give it into a DAO structure where people who may have not the expertise make decisions about investments. This is more gambling than long-term investing. So what we're doing is we invest in everything that could potentially be decentralized, but also reach the masses. When we started with NFTs, this is basically how I got into that space. That was 1.5 years ago. And the first thing that we saw was not the potential to make a whole bunch of money. If that was the case, I would be rich and not here, I guess. But we rather saw the potential for especially creatives and artists to reward the communities on a new level, create new fan base exchange opportunities, and just like new ways to incentivize. And this is basically how we also focus on our investments for Web3 startups and NFTs, because we see huge problem, and I think everyone else is familiar with this problem, which is it's still fucking complicated. So everything around Web3 is super complicated. It's very difficult to explain to others who have no relation to that. It's very difficult, and I don't know if you guys like bridged tokens before, swapped tokens before, all of these things, or tried to explain your parents why you bought this ape. All of these things on the surface don't really make sense. And we want to change that with the W3 vision, where we connect Web2 and Web3 brands just to force exchange and to try to get more people on board, making use of that technology, making use of all the potential use cases. And for that, we need a lot of education, which is still the point. So this is part of our solutions when we create content, when we talk about all of these things, and when we invest in projects. So we are an investment fund, but we don't flip NFTs on a daily basis. This is tax-wise very difficult, but also it's just not how we think about that space. We think long-term, and whenever we invest in projects that enable co-creation. Of course, sometimes there's art involved, so stuff that you could collect that is not tied to a specific time, but rather like a long-term thing. And we want to invest, especially when we invest in startups, in people who really want to break the barriers and to focus on the infrastructure to make everything more easy and accessible for everyone else who just doesn't have the time to invest in everything around, I don't know, marketplaces, wallets, whatever. And we want to show people that NFTs can be more than JPEGs of apes that you can trade and you can make a whole ton of money with, but rather these are new ways to invest in founding teams, in visions, in tech especially. So when we invest in NFTs, it's not just blue chip NFTs like the Bored Apes, but rather also NFTs that come up with completely new tech perspective on the blockchain. And so yeah, I think this is a rather broad answer since we're not building, but we want to enable and enforce to get the brighter mass into blockchain technology.
Cool. No, don't say sorry. I'm going to like that you. Okay, so we are building a D app. Very different. But maybe we can talk after. So Stardew is a play-to-earn mobile app for natural capital, and we exist to restore the ecosystem and ideally reduce some of your eco-anxiety. I definitely have a lot of eco-anxiety. I suspect, given this heat, everyone has a lot of eco-anxiety going on right now. what started off as more of a healthy you, healthy planet vibe that we were going for, where you look after yourself and the planet at the same time, we actually started to uncover a real opportunity within the Web3 space to create nature-backed NFTs. So a nature-backed NFT is an NFT that is actually backed by a living tree, or we say tree, but something that's living and is sequestering carbon. So our app, we're building the D app at the moment, and that will actually allow users to play to earn and be rewarded with these nature-backed NFTs. So flipping the switch on some of those other play to earn or move to earn apps that you may have seen before. But the whole idea is that anyone and everyone can come on board to our application. They don't need to understand Web3. And then they do get to this point where they can be rewarded with an NFT that is going to increase in value over time as that is longer alive. Lives longer. Gosh, guys. So in terms of, and actually our first nature-backed NFT that we awarded to one of our users was a completely anonymous user who gave us their public key completely anonymously, and then we rewarded them with that NFT completely anonymously. I have no idea who it was, but that's how that happened. So that's very exciting. And we are actually going into closed beta soon. So if you are interested in testing it out, we are looking for people that are new to the app as well. So please send me a message afterwards. In terms of decentralization in general, from a company perspective, at the moment we're focusing on the D app, which obviously has an element of decentralization. In terms of the company structure though, that's something that, to your point, overcomplicated for now. And for us specifically prioritizing building something that is not necessarily needing to have an understanding of Web3 or what's being powered behind it from the technology side of things, maybe in the future, but for now, it wouldn't be a priority for us.
Perfect. Thank you so much. On that note, which is, apart from government bureaucracy in this particular country, what is one of the biggest challenges you face either as an individual or on a project or company level building in a decentralized world? Shall we start with Elise this time?
Throw it back. I think communication is the biggest challenge for sure. Communication is key. So decentralization for me only really works when there is more people on board and it becomes more of the norm, let's say. That's when true efficiency starts to exist with the way that information flows through systems. So the reason I bring that up is because you can't sell to the masses the story that use this because it's decentralized. Most people don't know what that means. They don't know why that's an incentive, and it doesn't actually give them something tangible to hold on to. And I think for us to move into this decentralized landscape, it requires a lot more than the people here to be on board. And so I think communication is key, and how we can translate that to be what is the benefit of using a tool or something like this. I mean, it might even be in the background that it is on Web3. So yeah, I think communication is difficult. And if anyone has any ideas, hit me up, please.
So yeah, totally agree with you. Before getting into Web3, I didn't even know what decentralization was rather than I didn't really care. So I think one of the key points is to make it more accessible to others, not to force them that this is the best thing ever. I think there are still, as I said, a lot of challenges, and not everything should be fully decentralized. I think there always should be, I don't know, some kind of things in between, some people who have maybe more centralized power in order to make proper decisions. So I don't believe that a world should be fully decentralized and everyone should have the same vote. I think this would rather be a mess. So that makes me think about, okay, what's the best infrastructure then? And I don't think that we came to a point where we can make a huge amount of people within one group decentralized, where everyone has the same vote and governance is on chain. But how could a decentralized world look like on the blockchain, where people have potentially the chance to participate, potentially the chance to be incentivized, without the whole system falling apart, which we have seen in the past couple of times. But I think one of the key aspects is education and a solid infrastructure, and I think it needs a way more projects to fail, unfortunately, in order to learn from that and build something that could potentially go into, I don't know if you guys know the network states from Balaji, not that I'm a fully fan of that idea, but something that goes into that direction, having like smaller DAO structures for different topics and different themes could be something that a lot of people could potentially work with, because we have clubs and all these, in German, Vereine, already, where people come together for the same reason and decide things and talk about things. And putting that on chain could be something working out, but for that we just need way more people to understand that this is out there and to make it useful. So I think before even thinking about a decentralized world, we first of all have to have better internet, better infrastructure, hardware, and all of these things, and this just takes way more time. So what we can do is be here, educate, and invest time and money into something that's better than what we have right now.
How much time do I have for this? Because I have a lot of challenges.
You have time.
Okay, good. So I think the biggest one, to be honest, in the context of what we do at Fuel, is the lack of blueprint, really. You know, generally when you start a company, a project, a business, whatever, you kind of have some key definition of success, how the business strategy, marketing, product development should look like, or the funding. When it comes to Web3, you don't have any of that. You know, it's so early, like we've said before, and you have certain success stories and certain failures, but there's nowhere near enough data to actually be able to build a framework and to say, okay, this is the right way. So we are in a position of huge privilege, but also huge challenge to actually develop, set the standards for the future, and to actually build something that's going to be good, useful from all of these perspectives, you know, product design, everything else. So we just have to be there, close to the customer all the time, and together with them develop all of these things. So that keeps me up at night, you know, sometimes, because I have every day something's new, every day there's a new challenge, a new thing, and there's nothing to turn to. So you have to, a lot of the times, go with experts, go with your instincts, go with the artists, and try to find a way. And there's another one that I feel the need to mention is the scams. These are really, really setting us back a lot. You know, if you take a closer look, the numbers of scams are quite insignificant, I dare say, compared to the great projects that can be out there, you know, in the NFT space for artists, for musicians. But because we love so much to talk about the bad things instead of the good things, and how you see, you know, the media portraying everything, that really sets back a lot of people from, and adoption in general, you know, from joining the space and from giving it a go. So it's a lot of work on this front as well. Yeah, these would be my two main.
Okay, so I had two, and now I'm going to have to add a third, PR. So I come from digital media background, New York Times, Wall Street Journal, and it is hard to see projects, DeFi especially, the sexy things, get all the press, and there are very few good quality crypto outlets. There are crypto outlets that are have reporters that have just come up through one or two projects, and then they're reporting on an industry with not very much depth. They're re-reporting stories, the important stories that they should be digging into in terms of maybe fraud or lack of compliance, they just don't even notice. I mean, the basics, if you think about how you would report on our industry, you would be in the telegrams, you would be on crypto Twitter, everything is there, right? People are discussing proposals. You could really dig in and cover this industry so well, and I think unfortunately, you know, you get coverage of the big funding, you get coverage of the big hacks, the big scams, but the projects that are out there doing the hard work every day, it's a lot tougher to get press. So, or if you want to pay to play, then you can put your articles in there, but that's not really coverage. So that's one challenge. And also, it's really, really tough to hire a good PR agency and good marketing agencies. And it's a super competitive market. So anyone who's in Web2 that wants to move into PR, marketing, biz dev, sales, it's huge opportunities now. Everyone's hiring it, even in a down market. But the things that take up a lot of time, especially when I was at Polkadot and Web3, are government bureaucracy, I would say, and regulatory compliance. Many, many hours. At one point, I think we had more lawyers hired than we had devs. So Germany in particular is very focused on digitization. I think they want to, have a lot of catching up to do compared to maybe other regions. But they don't seem to really want to make that leap to something like decentralization and adopting Web3 technology. Case in point, Klich introduced or went around talking to all the government ministries in Germany with an app we had developed for COVID. It was going to use something quite decentralized, your face, as what you would use for your COVID testing and tracing. It wouldn't use anything decentralized like your passport, your name, your social security, whatever. They liked the idea but wouldn't adopt it because they didn't want to create two classes of people, the vaccinated and the unvaccinated, which is, of course, what exactly happened a year later. So it's very slow, and there's also a lot of projects and people out there who believe that it needs to be top-down rather than bottom-up. And so they really want government to introduce and adopt and go first, and we all know that's not going to happen. So I think it's really this kind of push-pull on how much time we spend on working with government to adopt us in the different ministries and the different jurisdictions, and how much we work with the ecosystem, and then how much we go cross-chain. Because I think we also have a tendency to play in our own ecosystem bubble, whether that's Polkadot, Avalanche, Near, but in order for this to really succeed, things have to be built cross-chain, and there has to be a lot more collaboration. On the regulatory compliance framework, from a comms perspective and the challenges there, depending on where your project lives and where you are based, you have to obviously follow certain rules in how you promote your coin and how you promote your project. And some jurisdictions are a lot more lax, or they don't have the best lawyers, or they don't listen to their lawyers. And so you have folks throwing a lot of money at exchanges and doing a lot of marketing and a lot of shilling of their coins. So it's really hard to compete with that when you're trying to build a really compliant project. After talking to many, many lawyers, you really don't want to be selling into markets that cannot buy your coin. So that often means US, it often means China, it means a whole list of restricted areas. So that means no cash tags in your tweets, no retweeting cash tags. Hashtags are cool, but anything that gets into the shilling of your coin. So I've done a lot of guidance in employee communications and founder communications, and when I see colleagues out there kind of shilling, I'm just like, guys, folks are reading this, and certain regulatory bodies have long lists of projects that they're going to go after, so you really want to do it the right way, and at the same time you're competing with folks who are just spending tons of money to succeed. So that's a challenge, but I think in the long run it's much better to be a really tight organization and do it right. And you know all about this.
Yeah, I like the question of challenges for someone who's building a stable coin right now. So if you have followed the news, or even if you haven't, there's a lot going on with stable coins. Or, well, not a lot, but things that, as you mentioned, like, things that make a lot of noise and that people like to talk about a lot. So obviously there's Terra, Luna, there's also, what happened lately with USDC and Mixer, etc. So all of those things are definitely things that put stable coins on the eye of people. So that is obviously a challenge because a lot of people are losing, a lot of the faith, or not faith, but like trust they had in these projects before. But also we see it as an opportunity because now people do more due diligence and look more into projects. And, if you go there and look for a good team that have a stable coin that makes sense and is over-collateralized, all these things that we are doing at the standard, then, you're more sure that this project is going to be successful and not just because it's trendy, I'm going to put it on this one coin. The other challenge that we also have that's pretty serious, I agree with what you've mentioned about regulatory and compliance. So obviously we want to make this protocol last and be durable, and for that we want to make sure it's done right. And that can be something that takes a lot of time, as you said, but it's also something that you cannot predict long term, because with all these scams and things happening is when regulatory bodies are starting to look at it. So for example, stablecoins were something that some governments were looking at it, but others were not so much, or at least they were not actively going after it, which might be changing soon. So these are two huge challenges that we have to, again, we see it as opportunity. So all of these we're learning from, and it makes that, it sort of happened also with crypto winter, because I've been to already previous crypto winter. It's like the projects that survive are the ones that are doing things right, because all of the, the not so good projects are not going to be built to last. So that's what we're taking from these challenges.
I love the duality of the world. We have crypto winter and we're sitting in a hot, hot room in Berlin summer. That leads us to our next question. We're building the future. You guys are building the future while working in the future, and this can be exhausting and exhilarating. What is one highlight of the work you're doing, your why for building a decentralized world? We'll start with Anne.
So similar to what we were discussing about data, we envision a money system that is not controlled by banks, but by people. So this is definitely the highlight, to make sure we can build something that people can control and not a handful of people. So that would be like the why, right, that you were asking about. So this is definitely the why we're doing it. And a highlight, I think, I'm just very excited about us launching recently. So this is definitely my highlight of the week and probably the month. So that's definitely a highlight and the why we're doing it.
Good whys.
The why. So why I'm doing it, I've been in tech 20, 25 years, hardware, software, digital media, ad tech, and I was really attracted to blockchain. I was actually looking at AI, big data, and blockchain and deciding where I wanted to spend the rest of my career. And it was hands down easiest to decide on blockchain because there's so many use cases, so many verticals, and such a huge challenge of adoption, right? That's the biggest thing, is getting the world to start to understand what we already think about all the time. It's exhausting. I've been in 3 back-to-back crypto startups or blockchain rather, startups, and burnout is real. I think it's really important that there's always something. There's always another build. There's always a token sale. There's a round. And so it's really important to have that support network and find your space, which I never do. But we try, right? We really try. And for me, I was attracted to Klich in particular because, for one, I still remember, old enough to remember when Google came online and Facebook, and over the last 10, 20 years, we have given up our identity. We have given up our data. We don't even think about it. We log in with any one of 10 different logins. And so I think the opportunity here is to capture, well, for one, to think about that a little bit more, to look for applications and services where you don't need to do that, and 3, actually capture and start to educate younger generations who have grown up in a digital world, whose digital footprints, we're going to try to start to brand this thing. We all think about our carbon footprint. Now let's think about our digital footprint. Let's think about our identity and how it's dispersed over partners and monetized and retargeted. And so to get this, whether it's the TikTok generation or whatever you want to call it, thinking they're already super private, right? They don't want their parents or friends maybe putting their faces online when they're younger. You have to ask their permission, et cetera, which is really interesting when you think about it. So if they can take that to the next level and start to think about these things as they go into metaverse and where the new applications and services and worlds they're going to be doing every day, if keeping hold of their data and identity is part of their behavior online and in virtual worlds, I think that's going to be a huge step in moving even, again, bottom up rather than top down.
Perfect.
Thank you. So for me, I think it's the artists, hands down. I've always had art and music close to my heart, so it's a very personal thing as well. But I get the chance to talk to artists every day. I think I've spoken to and got to meet hundreds until now, and every day I'm humbled, I'm amazed and inspired by the things that they can achieve, seeing already how the beginning of Web3 could empower them so much to do so many things, and the vision that they have for their art and the world that they want to build. And that to me, pushes me as well to try to do the best I can. And it's all about, I know it sounds very idealistic and probably you won't believe me, so I encourage you all to just hit up NFT Twitter and believe me, you're going to feel it. But it's about giving back. I think for the most part, artists have been brought into the NFTs, have been helped. Either having their first mint paid or, someone helping them out, setting up a wallet and all of these other things. And from this point, you could see this snowball effect of help where now they most of what they want to do is to give back through different ways. You know, you have DAOs being built up for supporting Black women in music, or all sorts of other kind of initiatives and diversity, or you have projects that are being started to support environmental causes, to support, you know, animal rights and all. There's like, it's infinite, you know, ways in which they're giving back, and it's incredibly inspiring. And the community is so solid. That's why I said that scams are a problem, because they do not represent the truth and the intentions to which with which people come into the space. And another cool thing that I really want to mention, and then I'm going to be done, is to show the power of the community. There was this Web2 company, it's called Splice, I believe. They're doing this like sound library where you can basically get sounds and build your own music and stuff. And they don't allow those sounds to be used in the creation of NFTs. And I think it was last week or something like that, they posted this blog where they were like, yeah, you know, NFTs, doing an entire presentation around how artists are now using NFTs. And the community like jumped up on them immediately, and they were like, wait a second. You're not letting us use these, but now you're coming and promoting NFTs to like, what, get traction, or what was the deal? And it was like immediately taken down within the hour, and just to show that they're like the ministers of this space and trying to ensure best they can that whoever comes into this space, especially if it's a bigger player, it's gonna do it with the right intentions. And that for me is a really huge motivator.
Great. And now we're being given the 2-minute warning, but I'm gonna ask, just because, you know, men's have 95%, we're just going to take 2 more minutes on our side. So go ahead, Victoria.
I already saw this one, so I'll make
Go
it
girls.
short. So I totally agree with the things that have been said. I think we all have similar reasons on why we are in this very, very complex world still. For me, the highlight is basically to learn so many new things on a daily level. It's amazing. I'm in this space for 1.5 years, and I've never learned so much in my life. Be it the tech, I've never thought that I'm a nerd, that I really, really love to learn about smart contracts, about crypto, about blockchain, all of these things. And I've never thought that I once will be the person explaining these complex things to others, breaking it down, making it more accessible for others. I think everyone who started off with that has some kind of the same thing with, that there was this internet bubble thing in the early 2000s, and I'm not old, I'm not that young, but I was not particular participating into that boom. So now I feel like this is my time or our time, I'm sorry, to change that and to influence everything that is coming up in the next few years. And yeah, great to be part of that.
Okay, guys, I'm going to go real quick. I had this whole spiel about how the system is everyone's talking about the system's broken, but it's actually not broken, But so I'll keep it real short and say, to your point before, like there is no blueprint. There is no like answers. There's no rule book to follow. And for me, that's freaking exciting, because there's so much opportunity in this space to use it in so many different ways. Everyone will be on the blockchain. They may not know it now, but they will be. And so there's so much opportunity that comes with that. So that's exciting. It gets you through the days where you're like, why am I doing this?
Perfect. Well, thank you everyone for your time and sharing your expertise with us tonight. I have been your moderator, guide, and hopefully now a friend. Thank you. And we made it just in time.